22 News Broadcast Center. This is 22 News in Focus. And now, Decision 2013. How election night played out across Western Massachusetts. Here's Laura Hutchinson.
Good Sunday afternoon and welcome to 22 News in Focus. I'm Laura Hutchinson. This past week we had Election Day that was full of changes and surprises, from casinos to mayoral and the state Senate race. Voters across Western Massachusetts made their voices heard. One big surprise was the town of Palmer voting to not support a casino in their town. Palmer has been vying for a casino for many years and supporters felt confident it was going to pass. Joining us today we have Palmer Town Councilor Paul Burns joining us here to talk about this. First, we are going to be speaking with some of our other candidates who are sticking around for a while. They were revoted in. We're going to hear from them later on in the program. We're going to start off by talking about casinos today. Paul, I call this a surprise because Palmer has passed this a number of times. There have been several elections or referendums in the past.
One referendum.
Right, referendum. They've at least, made it public that they would support this type of thing over previous years. Was this a surprise to you?
It was a shock to me, unexpected. Although I thought it was going to be a tight race. I didn't believe the 15, 20, 30-point spreads that we'd seen historically over the years. Whenever you could, get right down into election, the races always get tighter. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what happened here. And, the anti-side seemed to get their word out better and get their supporters to the polls.
Okay.
It may not be over. Hopefully the recount will find a change. But, I think that's an outside shot. And I think at this point, it is what it is.
Talk to us about what you're hearing about the recount, first of all. So there was Precinct 2, I believe there was a question about the machine, but they did call for an overall recount.
There was some question on Precinct 2, and I believe there's also a question in Precinct 4 about some machine malfunctions, or at least that's what I've heard anecdotally. Mm-hmm. And that's what some of the observers felt. So that, I guess it's important to, it is important to have a final accurate vote and an accurate tally, so whichever way it swings. Like I said, I'm hopeful that there would be a change, but I think, realistically, it's probably not particularly likely, but, we'll see what happens.
Are you hearing any kind of timeline as to when this is,
I believe that they submitted their signatures today, and that they have to wait 3 days in order to certify that the signatures are valid and then schedule a recount. So I would imagine sometime next week, maybe early the week after.
Okay. What do you think went wrong for at least Palmer's side, Mohegan Sun, and we can talk about what maybe the other side did well, as you were saying, they got the word out, but what do you think went wrong? Why do you think people stopped supporting the casino? Do you think that's what it was, or?
I'm not particularly sure that they stopped supporting a casino in town. I think it may have been more this specific host community agreement, that there were things that weren't as clear as people would like. And I think another big part of it is that regardless of other communities passed host community agreements that are far less specific than ours. But we've been having this conversation for so long that I think people really wanted to see every last detail outlined in the host community agreement. Mm-hmm. And that's unlikely no matter when it's done, because a lot of this stuff has to happen after the casino is approved.
What sort of things do you think people would have liked to have seen that wasn't included in that?
It was clear from a few people that they wanted to see some money dedicated to education, and I think it was going to happen, but they wanted to see that in the host community agreement. I think other things that they were more concerned about were traffic issues that just didn't seem to be 100% resolved, although there was a commitment to resolve them, going forward. But I think it's going to be difficult to ever get a fully 100% vetted traffic plan in any host community agreement prior to approval, because there's so much that has to happen after the fact. You need to go to the planning board for site plan approval. You need DOT's input no matter where this is. And so I think some of those things are a little bit unrealistic, but clearly we probably could have done a better job of communicating just where that money was going to go.
Okay. Mohegan Sun's been in Palmer for a number of years, much longer than MGM in Springfield and Hard Rock was in West Springfield. Why weren't some of these other, details at least more spoken about, a little bit more, if you're saying that you don't think there was more information, was it that there wasn't enough time? Seems like there was a lot of time to get some of this together. Why wasn't that finished, do you think?
I'm not 100% sure. I think I really don't know the answer to that one, why it wasn't done. I mean, it wasn't my campaign to run, obviously.
Right.
So,
sure.
Mohegan Sun seemed to play the kind of game where they thought they were in a decent position, mm-hmm. and maybe they should have been more forthcoming earlier. Mm-hmm. Certainly historically, I've been critical of the pace of the project at some point in time, and certainly at the pace of negotiations. Mm-hmm. And I would certainly, my own opinion would be that they could have moved a little bit faster in some areas.
Okay. What is next for the town now? Let's just play devil's advocate and say that the recount does not go in your favor. What's next for Palmer, for that land? Who exactly owns that land, and what's going to happen with
I'm not
that
sure
area?
the exact ownership of the land,
Okay.
but you know, I mean, some things that we have moving forward, and I think I just wanted to address one perception. That there's a perception that this was the only thing going on in town,
Sure.
that there was no other development, and that's, you know, entirely inaccurate. This was probably the largest development. It would have the greatest impact on revenue in the region, but it wasn't the only thing going on. You know, we have 3 solar projects that are being built or permitted right now as I speak, and 2 of them are under construction, maybe the 3rd one. You know, we had Polymer Plastics move into our community in the industrial park in the last 9 to 12 months, and that was as a result of ongoing TIF projects, tax incremental financing, that we've done over the years. And these things move forward incrementally. We have an economic development and planning director now, is a position that we added as a result of the new charter change a couple years back, and that person will be focused on bringing more business into our community. And I think, you know, it's easy to focus on that one big issue, but moving forward, I think a lot of the nuts and bolts are in place to bring some small to medium-sized businesses into our community and to continue some growth. But we're not going to see the same kind of growth that's going to impact tax revenue that this project would have done. And I think that's, you know, in my opinion, the great loss in this is really the tax revenue and the ability to really improve our community in a way that no other single project could do. And you know, there are going to be issues just surrounding, where we budget and how we manage to fund everything that needs to be funded in our community.
That was an interesting location right there, right off the Mass Pike. Do you think city councilors or town councilors are going to be looking at that area and at least start putting their feelers out for other big projects, big commercial projects or anything like that to put there? Do you think that that's sort of an ideal plot of land still?
I think it's a good plot of land, but there is some difficulty in developing it because of the nature of the site. You know, there's significant bedrock up there. It's going to require significant amounts of infrastructure improvements that normally most businesses can't afford. And I think we still have some things going on. I mean, Northeast Realty has talked about developing the triangle across the street, and I know they're in the planning stage now. So, you know, there is talk of a hotel going up there and a mixed-use development going onto that property and some nearby property. So there are still some things moving forward. And of course, we have the Palmer Motocross racetrack on the north side of town. And I think that's a great development as well. So there are small pieces that continue to move forward.
Do you see any opportunity working with other communities when, you know, say the casino ends up going in Springfield, just because that's the one that passed, so that's the one obviously people are looking at now. Do you think that there will be any outreach to Springfield to somehow benefit Palmer, or do you think that that's too out of the way? I mean, do you think there will be any kind of outreach like that to at least try to, you know,
I think it's
get
certainly
the
the next step in the process. We can look at how we might be able to partner with other communities. Of course, I still want to see the results of the recount.
Of course.
But you know, certainly, I think we do have to look forward, no matter, you know, no matter what happened in the past. We have to look forward and come together as a community. You know, we do need to make sure that we can try to grow our community, and I think that there are things that we can do to make sure that we work together to grow the community and to grow the business base.
Okay, so you're thinking that you're going to hear something at least on this recount, hopefully in the next week or so, from Mohegan Sun or other?
Yeah,
just on
I
the
mean, it
recount?
has to be scheduled within 3 days of the petitions being submitted. I believe that happened today. So 3 days would be what? Monday's
Yeah.
a holiday, so we'd be looking at Thursday. So
Sure.
probably, I would imagine, probably early the week after.
Okay, we'll be looking forward to that. Paul Burns, thank you so much for joining us and talking to us about that. Sorry, I mean,
Thanks for
we've
having
spoken
me.
with this so many times. Sorry it's not under better circumstances for yourself there. I know that you've been working very hard on this.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. And we are going to talk to someone in Springfield next about their move to bring a casino to the city after this vote. Stay with us. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we are recapping the results of Tuesday's election. Later on in our program, we're going to talk to our new state senator, Don Humison, senator-elect that is. We have Ed Sullivan, the mayor-elect in West Springfield, and we have returning mayor in Holyoke, Alex Morris, with us. But first, continuing our conversation about casinos, let's now hear from Springfield Chief Development Officer Kevin Kennedy on what's next in Springfield following this election. So your reaction must have been somewhat positive to the news in Palmer. It was pretty surprising to a number of people that went the way it did, but it at least clears things up a little bit for Springfield.
Well, it makes the path more clearly defined. We know exactly where we need to go now, and what's in front of us is the suitability question and the surrounding community negotiations and the submission of the application by December 31st, and we'll move on from there.
Okay. What was interesting on Election Day was there were a number of communities that passed, they were asking their voters if they supported a casino in Springfield, and many of them, all of them, had negative outcomes. So what is how are you working with the surrounding communities, and how do you think that might impact you? Longmeadow, West Springfield, and you were even mentioning East Longmeadow as well.
Well, Springfield has to look out for Springfield's interest.
Sure.
That's the bottom line on quite a few things, but at the same time we have to recognize our responsibility on the region, and this is a very, very big project. We also know that from a surrounding community point of view, we want everybody to benefit from this, and MGM has had discussions with all the surrounding communities. They were before the Mass Gaming Commission yesterday and outlined a plan or a framework as to how to go forward. And we're going to negotiate in good faith, and we'll come up with a plan that will benefit. When you have a project as large as this, when you have other projects that are going on within our borders, and you throw in the repair of the viaduct, which is going to be a big, big project, you're talking about a huge amount of economic activity. There's plenty there for everybody.
Now, I want to ask you, do you have any concerns about, because this doesn't mean that this is going to go to Springfield. The Gaming Commission still needs to obviously pass the suitability for MGM and then make the ultimate decision. This could start all over again, the whole process, if MGM isn't chosen, just because we're just down to Springfield and MGM. Do you feel concerns that the negative votes and even the 91 project that you just brought up, the viaduct that needs to be redone, do you think that this is going to, weigh heavily on the Gaming Commission when they look at the details of this project and realize that there's, some negative reaction and also a major project that needs to be done?
No, I think they're going to adhere to the Gaming Act, and I think they're going to see the possibilities or the probability of great benefits to the Commonwealth, to the region. You're talking about a huge amount of tax dollars, both locally and on a statewide level. This region needs a boost, and we need to move forward. And I need to remind everybody that we did have a tornado go through the south end of Springfield a couple of years ago. We are definitely in need of some economic activity in that section of town. So I think that they're going to look at this positively. I think they've held the course so far. I think they look at the process that we used, which was definitely open and transparent. You and I and a number of your reporters and everybody around here had many discussions. Everything was put forth for people. As a matter of fact, I think that was one of the secrets why it passed in Springfield, that we didn't hide anything, and everything was put out there for the voters to see. So I see this as a positive for the region. I don't think that we're going to back off from this.
Okay. What are some of the focal points of just MGM's major project that you maybe didn't see in the other communities? What do you think is, going to sort of stand out to the Gaming Commission when they do take a look at this, when they're trying to decide if this is something that's good for Western Massachusetts?
Well, I think the Springfield project is a urban project. It has permeability, it has excitement, it has that wow factor that Chairman Crosby has talked about. An outdoor skating rink, movie theaters, bowling alleys, topiary gardens. You can go to the casino and enjoy the whole area without actually going into the casino, because the casino itself will be in the middle of the development. It's more of an urban model. It's built to scale. It has housing units with it. It will have entertainment that this region has not seen because of the prohibition that Live Nation and the stranglehold that Live Nation has down at Mohegan Sun. You can't play Mohegan Sun and then come up here and play Springfield or any of the venues around here. I mean, the people around here are going to enjoy much more opportunities than they previously had. I think people, in hindsight, once we get by the emotion of everything, I think people will come to see that this is going to be a good project for the region.
Now, you know this project better than most people do, just with your closeness to the negotiations and all that, but do you think that this is going to bring in as heavy traffic? Because when we talk about the surrounding communities and the impact, we're hearing a lot about the traffic and what it could take away from other businesses and what have you. Do you think that we're going to be seeing a major load of traffic based on the numbers and statistics that you've seen as it's been?
That's one of the advantages of the site. The number of entrances and the way to disperse the traffic is very, very good. And I think you'll see our studies show that it's a positive impact. MGM studies do also, but the question I think the surrounding communities have will show us the data. So what we will be doing, or what MGM will be doing, will be providing some money to them, and through the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, they're going to exactly look at what is the real data and how will it work, and we'll make judgment based on real data, not on emotion.
And what surrounding communities? I know that it hasn't actually been defined by the state which surrounding communities you need to consider, but what surrounding communities are you considering, or do you think MGM, like, is Holyoke one of those? Will Holyoke be considered in this?
There's two tiers to it. MGM last week sent out a letter to 8 what we consider to be not necessarily technically surrounding communities, but they sent letters out to 8 communities, all those contiguous to Springfield, plus Holyoke as our fellow gateway city, like Springfield. So we're going to have those discussions. We are going to be providing some money to them. MGM's going to be providing some money to them to do the studies that are necessary to go forward. One of the pieces that we need to look at as a region, there's not just the surrounding community issue that's in front of us. There is another pot of money that the Gaming Commission has access to, which is regional impacts. And in that pot of money is a very, very large amount of annual money. It'll be somewhere around $13 to $15 million a year that all of us in the region can use. And I'm not talking about those that are just contiguous. You asked the previous guest about Palmer. Well, Palmer should benefit from this too, not from just an employment and some of the vendor uses that'll go on, but we need to take a look at from that money that the Gaming Commission has. We need to look at a regional lockup. We need to look at regional dispatch. We need to look at things that will help all the small towns in Hampden County, basically.
I have to ask, you know, if this really happens, can Western Massachusetts, and maybe this was a question for several years ago, but can Western Massachusetts maintain such a large project? You know, when you talk about all the different entities that are going to be going into this proposal, is it too big for Western Massachusetts to sustain? Do you think that not only Springfield, but Western Massachusetts in general can maintain something like that once, you know, the initial newness of it is over? Do you think years and years down the road that we're going to be able to maintain this type of project in Springfield? Do you have any concerns about, like, you know, years down the road? If
no, I think we're going to be in good shape. And the reason I think that is everybody that looks at distribution formulas, you look at what's called the Standard Metropolitan Statistical Index, which means basically how many people are in your area. Well, the casinos do the same thing. And their measurement shows that Springfield in the surrounding statistical area has 2.4 million people in it, which is a very, very large base for a casino operation. You're also looking at our transportation situation between 91, the Turnpike, the rail, Bradley Airport. I mean, we're in pretty good shape. And the other thing not to forget about, the nature of this will improve Barnes in Westfield and will also improve Westover and Chicopee because of the private airline part of it.
Could have an interesting ripple effect with it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Chief Development Officer in Springfield, Kevin Kennedy, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about it. Really appreciate it. Nice to hear what's next, and we'll be looking forward to seeing what is next in this process with MGM. Thank you so much. And Massachusetts has a new state senator to talk about. We're going to talk with Don Humison about his move from the House to the Senate after the break. Stay with us. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus, recapping the election today. When Senator Michael Knappich resigned his state Senate seat earlier this year, several people stepped up to fill that position. And this week, voters elected Westfield Representative Don Humison to become the new state senator for the 2nd Hampden, Hampshire district, who is here today to talk to us all about it. Congratulations on the win. That's great. It's a wonderful step in your career, of course. How's this transition going to be for you? When is the transition happening?
Just like everything associated with this race, it's going to be pretty fast, I think. It was a special election, three months from start to finish.
Yep.
That's very rare. State Senate race, usually 7 to 8 months. So we got a lot done in a short time.
Yeah.
The transition has to happen either very quickly or a little more slowly because the legislature adjourns for its Christmas break, its Thanksgiving and Christmas break on November 20th. So the totals have to be certified by the Secretary of State's office. The Governor's Council has to approve it. and they can only do that when they meet every other Wednesday. Their next meeting is November 20th, so it could be as early as then.
Oh.
If they can't do it on that date, though, it puts it off until a later time. So I met with the Senate President this week in Boston when the House met on Wednesday just to say hello and talk to her about the transition. And so we're really waiting to see when the results are certified, when they get in, and that triggers everything else to happen from there.
You must be looking forward to this.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. What are you most looking forward to? What committees do you think you're going to be joining? What can we start expecting to see from you?
Well, as a member of the minority in the Senate, a minority party, a Republican member of a body of 40, there's only 4 Republican senators. I'm one of them. So our members serve on many more committees than the Democratic members. That can be both good and bad. You get a lot more input, but you're also pulled in a lot more directions. Right before the election, I found out from the Republican leader in the Senate, Bruce Tarr, that he would be appointing me to the Ways and Means Committee. So I'm very, very pleased about that because I can sort of follow in my former boss, my former mentor, my friend Mike Knapik's seat. He was the Ways and Means member from Western Massachusetts, one of several actually, but it's nice to be able to pick up where he left off and to continue on Ways and Means. And then I'm sure other committees, I'll certainly make requests. I was always interested in transportation because it's so important out here for us so far away from the capital with all the projects that we have going on in Western Massachusetts to have somebody who could kind of ride herd over those and follow legislation involving transportation. But there's so many others as well.
Yeah, what are some of your top priority projects as far as, legislation that you'd like to see passed? What are some of the, if you were to name maybe your top 2 or 3, what are the things you'd really like to see
There's
done?
so many big issues that you have to pay attention to, and it's not just me as one member, but I think all of us in Western Massachusetts are always on the lookout for anything involving local aid and sort of what I call budget fairness for Western Mass. Just because we're so far from the state capital, sometimes we tend to get forgotten. And so whether you're in an urban community like Holyoke or Chicopee or Westfield or something more rural like Montgomery or Talland or Southwick, there's a lot of things that impact your town, and that is an area where we can look out for that. I think legislatively, it's funny because I was talking with some friends this week, maybe right before the election, and there's a bill that involves the city of Holyoke. And a lot of people don't think about it, but I mentioned it on a couple of the debates, but it's a volleyball bill. It's simply a bill that was filed by Senator Knapik and Representative Kane before Representative Vega, who's in there now, just to make volleyball the official team sport of the Commonwealth. It seems like such a simple thing. There's no cost associated with it. But economically, volleyball brings a lot of people into Holyoke and into Western Massachusetts from all over the world because it's played all around the world in a big way. And so that'd be something that, like having the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield and the Volleyball Hall of Fame in Holyoke, it would just help a little bit, I think, with our area of the state. So something small like that, but something that now that there is a senator in that seat, we can push along a little bit better.
Okay. We're going to be looking out for that, actually.
Yeah,
the
kind of
official
fun.
sport. That'll be
Everybody's
interesting.
played volleyball.
You mentioned being one of the, and we know this, one of the few Republicans in the State House. It was an interesting race to watch because Bartley had a number of, a lot of people actually endorse him, just a number of high endorsements there.
Right.
How do you think, how does the Republican seat there in Westfield stay so strong? What is it about the dynamic of the area?
I've never run from the party label of being a Republican. I'm proud of that, obviously, but I also try to deliver what I consider less partisan political leanings and just sort of more common sense things. So I don't know, I guess it has a lot to do with how we were raised out here in Western Mass, sort of hardworking, common sense people getting things done for the good of everybody. And if it happens to be a Republican ideal, okay. If it happens to be a Democratic ideal, that's good too. I can't remember if it was President Reagan who said, it doesn't matter who gets, it doesn't matter whose idea it was, as long as you're willing to share the credit, it's a good idea and it gets done, it's good for the people. That's sort of how I look at things too.
Do you think that that's going to make for, you've gotten through the House with that, do you think it's going to make for a challenge in the Senate for you? Or? Well,
one of the advantages now of being in the Senate is many of those senators are former House members.
Okay.
And because I've been a representative in Western Mass for as long as I have what I would consider a very good working relationship with my colleagues on the House side and also the Senate side, and in a lot of the local communities. So they're not getting I'm not surprising anybody by who I've been or what I'll be. I intend to say sort of the same person. And so I think that there's a comfort there, almost a comfortableness, because they know, they being my colleagues and the other people around Westfield, know what they're going to get. So I've demonstrated a willingness to work with pretty much anybody if it helps, and I think it will.
And then what happens to your House seat now? So are we
That
going to
is
have
the
another
next-
special election?
That's the next big
I
question.
have to say, we have
I honestly,
voters fatigue, I think, right now.
I agree
It's-
100%. I think people are getting tired of all these special elections.
Yes.
And elections in general, and we've seen it by the number of voters that have kind of fallen off the process.
Sure.
It all depends on how soon the swearing in can happen, because there's only so much time to do a special before the next normal, regular year election.
Right.
So if I get sworn in November and a special gets scheduled for early next spring, that would coincide with the time that nomination papers become available for the seat anyway. So
Right.
it's really a timing issue. I'm curious to see what will happen. I'm excited. I hope that seat goes to somebody who loved Westfield as much as I do. And I'm sure the voters will make sure of it.
And is there any names being thrown around of anybody that you would anticipate?
There have only
that
been
sort
a
of thing?
couple of names that are out there, and I think there'll be time now that I've won the seat, and it's a sure thing that I'll be leaving at some point. I'm certain other people will consider it too.
Okay, and since we have you here, how are we, just speaking with state news, how are we financially right now?
Well,
people are always wondering, talking about local aid, and I know.
That's a key issue for us here, of course, and across the state. But stronger than we've been, not as strong as we could be. And that's kind of a lame answer, but it's the truth. Our economy has improved gradually, but not as quickly as we'd hoped for, not as strongly as we'd hoped for. It's better than we were a fiscal year ago, and we took in as a Commonwealth about $627 million more in money in this last fiscal year, than the Commonwealth intended, than we had thought, because we set a bar, worked towards that bar, and actually because of some key factors, money came in above that. We'd like to be able to continue on that trend of taking in more money, because that means there's more people working, there's more companies producing, there's more people that are buying things, and so more money is being spent in the general economy. If that's the case, then there's more money for the government to spend on projects and programs and services that we all think are important. So I'd like to see the trend continue to go up, and also to make sure that we don't do anything in the legislature, on the House or Senate side, that stops that upward trend.
And you mentioned transportation as well. We recently reinstated the tolls on the
Right.
western part. I don't know if you knew.
I'm pretty sure.
But what kind of checks and balances is there to ensure that money actually goes to projects in Western Massachusetts?
Yeah, the trouble with this is the State Department of Transportation thinks that Western Mass, at least as far as the Turnpike is concerned, goes from exit 1 to exit 14 down in the Natick, Newton area in the eastern part of the state. So even though the tolls were reinstated on exits 1 through 6, that money can be spent all the way to the western border of Boston. So from the beginning, I thought that was a bad idea. From the beginning, I didn't think it was necessary. If you know the law, the law says that the Pike, at least in Western Massachusetts, is supposed to become free in 2017. So if we're going to free the Pike anyway, why reinstate the tolls? So I don't know what kind of checks and balances there are. There certainly need to be more.
Right.
It's all well and good if we spend that money for maintaining the Pike, but if it goes towards other areas, that's not good for Western Mass motorists. It's not good for anybody.
And is the 91 viaduct on the radar? That's a
It has to
major
be.
project.
Yeah, the Economic Development Council, the chambers of commerce, business leaders, people who live in the area, anybody who drives the north and south route through Springfield have to be concerned about that.
Right. Is there a sense of urgency? Is that something that we're going to see at least?
I think you reported last week that chunks of it are falling down.
Yes.
So, yeah, there's urgency for anybody
Yeah.
who parked their car under there, for sure.
Right.
Anybody who drives over.
Parking
it, too.
garages are closing because it's falling.
Right.
So can we please get on that this
Exactly.
year?
That's a big concern.
Thank you so much for joining
My
us.
pleasure.
Congratulations again on your win. It's so nice
Thank
to
you,
talk
Laura.
to you. Appreciate it. And West Springfield also has a new mayor. After the break, we're going to talk to Ed Sullivan about his plans for the town. Stay with us. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. West Springfield has a new mayor, and it is Ed Sullivan. We're recapping the election today, and he's here to talk to us about your win in West Springfield. Thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yes. So when do you officially take over?
January 2nd, 8 a.m. the swearing in, the first business day of the new year.
Okay. Talk to us. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Why did you want to run for this seat?
Well, I'm a West Springfield person, born and raised there, truly care about West Springfield, and started to learn about some of the things that were going on, whether it was budget or, public safety and those things. And I, I've been involved before. I've been involved as city council president, but that was 7 years ago. Prior to that, I was on the school committee and a town meeting member. So I've been involved in different facets of the community over the years, and just thought we could do a little better job. Well, I thought we could do a better job.
Yeah. So you're ready to step into the mayoral office there?
Ready to go.
What are some of the top priorities that you have? Maybe some of the changes we might see off the bat when you walk in the door. What are some of those issues that are important?
Well, first of all, there's some pending issues, lawsuits, other legal issues that we want to put behind us. We want to do the business of the city and move forward, be productive, and not spend so much time and resources on litigation and those sorts of things. So it's really important to put that behind us. I've already started meeting with principals. I met with the city solicitor earlier today, the chairman of the Community Preservation Act Fund. So I'm trying to gather as much information as I can so we hit the ground running. We want this to be seamless. We don't want any bumps in the road.
Mm-hmm. And, many things that we were hearing about were, obviously the casino. That's something we hear about all the time.
Sure.
Are you prepared to negotiate with, or at least get in touch with, what do you think you're going to be doing to ensure that West Springfield is protected should Springfield end up getting that casino there?
Well, huge concerns on the west side of the river. It's my understanding, though, that if there's not a surrounding community agreement by December 30th, then it has to be appealed to the Mass Gaming Commission. So this surrounding community agreement might be resolved before I'm even in office. If it's not, then certainly we're going to look at a number of things and talk to the folks from MGM. Very concerned about public safety, quality of life, infrastructure. We have, our roads parallel Springfield. You have Route 5, Memorial Ave leads right into it. I joke about putting a toll booth on the Memorial Avenue Bridge. But I believe traffic will be increased quite a bit. When I looked at some of the study numbers from Springfield back in April, I believe they only had like 7% of the traffic coming from the west, which I think is off. Way off. I believe a lot of people will be coming through the Route 20 corridor, right through the center of West Springfield, Memorial Avenue, and the back way, and it'll also, of course, affect Agawam, our friendly neighbors. So there's a lot of issues that have to be discussed.
Okay, we know Hard Rock was interested in building in West Springfield. The voters did not approve of that. That was rejected. Do you have any ideas for maybe using that plot of land at the Big E now that we know that the Big E was interested in bringing something there? Do you think that we're going to see something there?
Yeah, I believe so. Now that we know that they're interested in leasing, maybe utilizing that land for something else. I mean, there's other opportunities. You could have a minor league ballpark that plays out and finishes before the Big E starts, so you wouldn't have the same traffic concerns. So there's some other opportunities there. Depending on what happens in Springfield, who knows? Maybe the Big E want to put a hotel there.
Yeah.
I have a call into Gene Cassidy, the president of the Big E, to see what his thoughts are on that. And but we really want to do a good job with economic development. If it does go to Springfield, we want to protect the quality of life in West Springfield, but we also want to reap some of the benefits from the casino being across the river.
Okay. Not to bring up your challenger there, Greg Neffinger, one thing he campaigned on significantly was that he lowered taxes and kept them down. How should West Springfield residents, what should they expect to see from their, from the tax rate?
Well, that was one of my concerns when I jumped into the race, is the way he did it. He was taking one-time funds to pay ongoing expenses. The budget this year is up 3.5%. So when you take money or fund the health insurance trust, the employees, the community's trust, what that means is you create a gap, a fiscal gap similar to what they have in Washington, D.C., and that you can't sustain it. So that's a huge issue. So it's going to be a challenge to find efficiencies within the budget. But I believe we can find them. We'll do a good job with that. We're not looking to increase fees or anything like that. The fees were increased during my opponent's administration. We definitely don't want to do that. It's just another form of tax. So we're going to look pretty hard at a bunch of different things. We're going to try to coordinate some of the efforts a little better. We don't want all the different departments having their own activity without maybe a focal point. For example, they have this project going on. It's called Complete Streets, which creates, when they say complete streets, it's for walking, biking, driving, maybe build out some crosswalk areas. Well, I learned the other day that they're planning on that planning to do that on Park Ave and Park Street, right on the town common. But on the adjacent street, the redevelopment authority is talking about doing the same thing. So we have activities going on that could really be consolidated. So we could, if we consolidate some of those things, we can save the taxpayers a lot of money.
And you mentioned some of those fees. Are we going to be seeing some of those fees go away? Are you going to be sort of re-evaluating some of this?
Well, the fees, the two biggest ones I was concerned with are the sewer fee, which is controlled by the town council, city council, we call it a town council, and the water fees. The water fees already went up 17%. I believe because those are enterprise funds, they can be frozen where they are. If we need a major project, it would have to be bonded for anyway. So we'll have to take a look at that. But relative to the ongoing operation of the sewer and water lines, those are funded to the point where they should be. The concern would be with major infrastructure replacements.
And how about your, you have a paper business as well?
I'm involved in a family business, started in 1940, actually in Springfield, right where the Basketball Hall of Fame is. Moved across the river in 1952, so we're a third generation company, produce specialty papers, box wraps for, some major chains, Tiffany's, Macy's, Brooks Brothers, some major retailers, gift wrap for TJ Maxx, Marshalls, those folks. So
yeah, got the big names, huh?
We have some big boys that keep us going. That's important, and we compete internationally too with the Chinese who tend to flood the market.
How are you going to maintain that business as well as run West Springfield?
Well, I have cousins that are very capable of doing that. They work there now. Also have some good people who have been trained over the years to handle the facilities and HR. Those are two areas that I oversee, and also environmental aspect of the company. My cousin has a great aptitude to pick that up. He's an engineer. So while I'm working for the town and the residents, I'm all the confidence in the world that they'll do a great job.
Mind if I ask your opinion on the Captain O'Brien issue that is currently going on in West Springfield? He's gone before the town council and all. How would you have handled that, or how would you, if this is still going on, when you step in?
Well, the first part of the question is overseeing personnel in 3 different states throughout the course of my business career. And some sensitive issues. Never put them out in the public forum. I believe that's poor management of the situation. Then what you have is one group promoting their side, another group promoting their side, not really sure how accurate each side is. Just this morning I had a packet dropped in my office at Sullivan Paper with some details from the O'Brien issue that were done by the independent I'll call him auditor from out of town. However, a lot of the information is redacted, names are crossed out, some times and places, so it doesn't provide me with the full story. So until I get all the information, it's hard to make an opinion on it. And I do understand he's going in front of civil service to have a hearing. He wants to have a hearing. So that should take place about 90 days, maybe mid to end of January. We might have the results of that. So we'll wait and see, what that brings to us.
And I know you mentioned that you've done time with school committee.
Sure.
How do you get along with your, how do you think this transition will go, at least with working with the rest of the town leaders and all of that?
Well, I have a history of, getting along with people, coming to consensus on a lot of issues. Sometimes we don't always agree. Sometimes you agree to disagree, but you come to a consensus. I've had a good working relationship over the years with many of the people. I've already started meeting with the principals, and as I mentioned, and a lot of people are very passionate about their jobs, and we try to build on that energy. I think we'll do great things.
Very good. It's not always an easy job, that's for sure. So we do wish you luck.
Thank you. I appreciate
Sullivan,
that.
thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing what comes of West Springfield. Thank
All right,
you.
that'd be great. Thank
and
you.
we do have Mayor Alex Morse in Holyoke with us. He was elected to a second term. Stay with us. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. Today we're recapping election night. We spoke with the mayor-elect in West Springfield and our state senator-elect Don Humison. We also recapped the casino vote in Palmer. But not every community has a new mayor Holyoke Mayor Alex Morse was elected to serve another term, and he's joining us today to talk about what we can expect in the Paper City. Congratulations.
No, thank you so much.
Did you ever expect that this would happen? I mean, you were elected, and it was a great first term, and people loved you. They elected you a second term. How are you feeling?
It was great. We felt great about the results on Tuesday, and when I ran 2 years ago, I ran because I promised to do things differently, because people were tired of business as usual. And I think people recognize that we can't do everything overnight or even in one term alone. And so I've said I'm in this for the long haul. We have a lot of big challenges in Holyoke, and I'm really excited about the confidence that the voters gave me on Tuesday night.
You must be feeling at least like this is a nice, clean, fresh start, because obviously you had to transition into the job before and learn the faces and how things are done. Now you can just hit the ground running, continue what you're doing.
And that's why I'm so incredibly excited about what we can do together in a second term. With the lessons I've learned over the past 2 years, with the fantastic team we put together at City Hall, and with the dedicated volunteers and residents of the city of Holyoke, we can do great things together. We've laid a really strong foundation in economic development, education, and public safety over the past 2 years, and I'm excited about building off that foundation in the coming years. So it's an incredibly exciting time to be in the city of Holyoke.
What are you most proud of from your first term? And I also kind of want to know what some of those challenges were that you have learned from and, have made for
I think over the next 2 years, be it the economic development projects finally begin construction. A lot of our public infrastructure projects will begin in the spring, be it the train platform, our canal walk, some big housing projects in the downtown. Those are important, and so that's what we're focused on. Obviously, we have some issues in the public schools that we're going to be addressing head on with Morgan School and the receivership question, and so I look forward to taking a lead on that issue. But again, with everything that that we've dealt with over the past 2 years, really cleaning up the city, really bringing new energy. I think what I'm most proud of is opening up the doors of City Hall and having new people, new residents sit on boards and commissions, volunteer for the city, people feeling like they're part of Holyoke again. And over the past 2 years, just door knocking the past few months, meeting families who chose to move to the city of Holyoke even when people told them not to move here, and they fall in love. And I think no matter how long you've been in the city of Holyoke, you fall in love with the place. You're proud to live in Holyoke, and Holyoke is just a wonderful community to be in, especially right now.
You mentioned the Morgan School. What can be done? What do you think you have the power to get done to help turn that school around?
Yeah, and issue of education, it's a complex issue, and it's something that takes time, and that's why we've made critical investments in early literacy and early education, which pays off in the long term. The issue of Morgan's incredibly personal to me because I went to Morgan School for 8 years, 2 years of preschool and kindergarten through 5th grade. And when I was at the meeting with the commissioner a few weeks ago, teachers who I had years ago still teach at Morgan. And it's just an example of the dedication and commitment that our teachers have in the public schools. On Monday night last week, I introduced an order to urge Commissioner Chester to appoint our new superintendent, Dr. Pius, to be the receiver for the school. And so I'm going to be on the committee that develops a turnaround plan along with the superintendent and parents and community members and teachers. We submit that to the commissioner, and then we're going to urge the commissioner again to appoint our own superintendent, the receiver, to give him an opportunity to turn the school around, because I led the charge to hire him, and again, he needs that opportunity to turn the school around internally.
And what has the reaction been? How much parental support are you getting? How much reaction from the state? What do you think is possible here?
Yeah, I think it's difficult, and I think in education it's easy to point fingers at the teachers, easy to point fingers at the parents, administrators. I think we have to say no excuses and no blame, come together at the table and come up with a solution that's going to be different. Clearly the status quo isn't working, and doing the same thing over and over, you just can't expect a different result. And so I'm excited to bring creative ideas to the table. And no one can tell us that kids from poor communities cannot learn. It's happening all across the country. And so we have to go into that room thinking everybody has something that they bring to the table, that they bring as assets. And so we have to stop thinking about our young people as challenges and problems. But again, what do they bring to the school that we can build off of? And so I'm excited. I haven't given up on our kids. I haven't given up on our city. And I think we can continue to do good things in the public schools.
Okay, we've obviously talked about the issue of Walmart that had been proposed to go in there. Are there any plans right now? I know that there was a supermarket at one point that was also proposed, and that failed as well. Where are we with bringing in some sort of big development? We've been talking about this, and there are different plots of land that we've looked at. Are there any prospects of bringing something big right now?
Yeah, a few different things. I think what's exciting is last year I introduced what's called an urban renewal plan to the city council, and they voted for it 15-0. And the urban renewal plan is a comprehensive development plan for the downtown 4 neighborhoods. The exciting thing about the plan is that 90% of the parcels and buildings identified in the plan are vacant or abandoned properties, which means we can build the city up from the ground up, and we have a lot of potential to do so. And so with the public investments we're making, we make it a more attractive place where the private sector wants to invest again in the city. We're also landlocked, and so again, we have to obviously build and reuse many old mill buildings, paper mills, other industrial sites and brownfield sites, clean them up to make them site ready. And so we have big prospects downtown. Also uptown, around Ingleside and the Holyoke Mall, there are a few parcels ripe for development. The 15-acre parcel on Whiting Farms Road, also the redevelopment of the old Atlas Copco site is another site for development. And so we're moving forward with Mass DOT to do those traffic improvements. We still see a commercial entity moving there, be it a retail plaza, another grocer. We also are moving forward the redevelopment of the Holyoke Hotel and Friendlies near the Holyoke Mall, and they've come in with a proposal. And so we see development happening in the city. And big developments can be good in terms of creating jobs and taxes, but again, I think Holyoke's opportunity is focusing on our innovation district economy in the downtown, supporting small business development, not just in Holyoke, but all across the country. 75% of new jobs are created by small business development. And so again, I think we can't forget our history in the city, our competitive advantages, our green, clean energy, and the type of businesses we want to attract to the city that are long-term, sustainable, going to create jobs and add tax revenue to our tax base.
Okay, and the Willimantic Bridge closure has been, we've been hearing, negatively impacting the businesses surrounding the area. Are you hearing from those business owners, and is there anything that the city can do? I understand that this is a Mass DOT. Is there anything that the city can do to help with that project? Yeah,
it's been a challenge for both Holyoke and Chicopee, obviously, and it's had an impact financially on many of our small businesses in that area of the community. We have been hearing from them. Our state representative, Aaron Vega, has filed a bill in the state legislature to provide a local tax abatement based on the hardship that the business faces, so that we can provide some relief to those businesses. It hasn't yet been approved, and that's something I support, and we'll continue to work on that. Unfortunately, all bridge projects in municipalities across the Commonwealth are not run by the city themselves, but by Mass DOT, and so we've urged Mass DOT to move as quickly as they can to make sure that construction does resume. The last we checked before the latest snafu happened, that the bridge would be completed in April of 2014. Obviously now I expect that to be delayed even more, but as mayor, it's my job to advocate for our residents and our businesses, and that's what I'll continue to do in the coming months.
Okay, and we've spoken with MGM, and they said that you have been in touch with them. Where are you in that process as far as, not exactly an abutting community, but maybe you are, so maybe this is something you could work with?
So after the residents of Springfield voted to approve the referendum around the casino in Springfield, they reached out immediately to surrounding communities, including the city of Holyoke. We've sat down, we've begun negotiations. Even though Holyoke doesn't directly abut the city of Springfield, I've been advocating for Holyoke to be designated a surrounding community because we are an impacted community. We're finding success there. I know the Gaming Commission has laid out a date of December 30th to have the surrounding community agreement signed, or else we go directly to the Gaming Commission. And I'm confident that we'll continue to work well with MGM and make sure we get a proposal that mitigates any impact that the Holyoke will have.
Okay, and as we heard from Don Humison, I guess volleyball could be the state sport there. That could be very good for Holyoke.
I supported that. I think it's a great bill, making volleyball the official recreational sport of the city of Holyoke. Just a couple weeks ago, I hosted people from all across the world who were getting inaugurated in the city of Holyoke, and I have a grand idea, and many folks do, to make sure we can have a state-of-the-art volleyball Hall of Fame in the city of Holyoke.
Mayor Alex Morris, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Looking forward to seeing what we have happen in Holyoke over the next term. Last word after the break. Stay with us. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Over the last hour, we talked about the results of Election Day, who's in, who's out, and what's next in the casino process now that Palmer rejected the referendum. Of course, there is a recount happening there. We heard about the recount and what's next for Springfield now that they're the sole community to pass that referendum. That is our program for today. We want to thank all of our guests for being here today. We want to thank you for watching, and if you missed any of it, you can watch it in full on our website at wwlp.com. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Take care and have a wonderful Sunday.